BIDI. Interviews Malaga, July 6, 2019. Well, BIDI is with you and greets you. Sisters. Hello, hello, hello BIDI. Laughs. So I come after the commander to try to bring my stone to the truth. Laughs. Who doesn't need stones, by the way? I'm listening to you. We will exchange as usual, through your questions, your interrogations. So I'm listening to you. Laughs. Voice. So, first question. Laughs. Voice. How can we live on this world while being aware of its absurdity? Laughs. But if you're agape, you're in joy, despite the absurdity, and precisely because of the absurdity. It's not antinomic. If you're in the truth, if you're true, if you are what you really are, you see both the illusion of this world, but you're going through this. You're fully alive, fully in trust, not in yourself, not in the circumstances of your lives, but a total trust to live it as you are. And what emanates from you at that moment is naked joy. It has been said and repeated. You cannot live on the one hand to live agape and consider that the absurdity of this world, this dream, does not allow you or prevents you from being happy, quite the contrary. It is by seeing the absurdity of this world, of this dream, of these characters who are agitated on the theater stage that you are fully alive. At that moment, it is no longer your life, but your life. And that's what joy is. Whatever the suffering, whatever the lack, whatever the abundance, you are no longer subject in any way to the laws of this world. You are free to go. That has been said. This freedom is not only internal, but also external from now on. And this is the major characteristic of the one who is free. He goes through absurdity, the dream, without any difficulty since he is awake. He knows he's dreaming. He accepts to dream, but he is no longer a prisoner of the dream. So if you are free, you're in joy. If you think you're free and you see absurdity, you are not free. Silence. This is the fire of the Sacred Heart. It is that whatever your state, whatever the state of your body, whatever the absurdity of this world is of any dream, you go through it in lightness, joy and evidence. That's the point. If you only see the absurdity and there is no joy, it is because you are not free. But you are on your way to freedom. You accept the absurdity of this world, which is, I would say, in a way, the first step in a natural process. But the one who is totally liberated, not only internally but externally, participates in the dream without maintaining it. It is his presence that translates into zero time his absence and the truth. The one who lives agape is light. The one who lives agape is in naked joy. He accepts the absurd, he accepts the dream, precisely because he is awake. In the same way that when you wake up in the morning, and you remember your dream, you know that it is a dream, even if it haunts you, even if you feel like you are reliving it, you know it is a dream. The same applies to the released person. He is perfectly at ease in dreams, in the absurd, in the simulacrum, as well as in the sacred. It makes no difference. Silence. It is not something that is imposed by any will, it is the concrete result within the dream of freedom. It has been said, until you accept everything, you cannot be free. You're on your way to freedom. But the one who is free, as has also been said, finds his humanity, his simplicity. He is present in every circumstance within the dream. He carries, without words, by his presence which is only the reflection of his absence, through his flesh, the truth. He carries the good news even without speaking. And of course, he accepts everything. He can't do otherwise, even if he wanted to. He cannot escape the truth that has been lived. Of course, it can fluctuate, but it can never disappear. Accept this world and accept this dream, and you will come out of the dream. You're on this world, but you are not from any world. Or maybe you're all worlds, which is the same thing. Both, like nothing, remind you of the same joy, nakedness, lightness, and simplicity. It can't be any other way. And as long as something seems absurd to you, within the total absurdity I concede it, you are still subject to the absurdity of the world. You are not yet totally autonomous and totally free. But it's on the way, it's on its way. there will come a moment, an instant, when you can only laugh at your character, your stories, your sufferings, your problems, as well as your joys. This is naked joy, naked love, it has been explained. And it's been lived. You go through everything, being free, even the nightmare, even the unreal. Everything that happens is crossed. That's what creates freedom. It's not to stop something that bothers you. Not to make him live. Not to deny it, but to cross it. Freedom, love, naked joy, agape, naked joy is just behind. It is this kind of thinking that recreates a kind of distance, a form of duality or separativity. Nothing is separate. Nothing is divided. Let's continue. Voice. What can you say about suicide? Nothing. Laughs. Suicide was presented as an offense. As long as there was a lockdown, suicide was not leading anywhere. But the one who lives agape has no desire or desire for suicide. Anyone who thinks about suicide is not free. Because when you're free, you can't think of suicide for a second. You think of being lucid, of being present, of being available, of always being there, where life has placed you. But not by rejecting anything about your life or the absurdity of this world. So I don't think anything about suicide. If it is only the one who thinks of suicide, it is the one who thinks he can put an end to something by suppressing himself. But you can't delete yourself. It's just you. And until now, suicide has had personal consequences. But once again, I repeat, the one who is free cannot have the slightest thought of suicide. On the contrary, it is present. Totally present. Totally human. Totally simple. Totally true. You can't end the dream by committing suicide. But only by acceptance. It's still two different things, isn't it? Silence. You can continue. Voice. What is the point of continuing to live with the disability of my epilepsy? The point is to go, as I said in the previous answer, to acceptance. If you really accept, and not immoral or personal acceptance, if there is an act of acceptance and embrace, everything is going through. When you think that a disability of any kind, chronic or recent, fatal or not, is punishing you, you are punishing yourself. The one who lives agape, who is agape, does not care about his cancer, does not care about his limits, does not care about his wallet, his life, whatever the appearance and whatever the suffering. And that is a claim of the ego. I want to be happy if I am no longer epileptic. Voice. Hemiplegic rather. Hemiplegic, it's the same thing. It is a demand of the person who wants to recover integrity, whereas epilepsy or hemiplegia is precisely what allows you to overcome disability, disease. And it's that for you, you have to accept that it's a reward and not a punishment. I believe that Commander mentioned compensation. But I prefer that word. It's a reward. If you are true, you can only give thanks for disability, illness, death, lack, as well as abundance. If there is another point of view, it is the point of view of consciousness, and not of agape. Silence. As long as you grumble, as long as you question, why this, why that, why that, why this handicap, why my house has been taken from me, why I am rich, why I am poor, you are not free, in either case. Truth is acceptance. Truth and acceptance are humility. Agape claims nothing. And especially not perfect health. And especially not, as you say, castles in Spain. That's the case, you're there. Laughs. Agape is light. Agape is human, it is the Son of Man. It is the incarnate truth that does not care about the absurdity of the world, the absurdity or the illness of one's body. Again, it's a reward. It limits you in greed. It limits you in your claims, and it makes you experience humility through acceptance, not rebellion. Who claims healing, if not the person himself? Agape doesn't care if he gets better or not. Agape accepts everything and goes through everything and heals simply by acceptance. You don't have to judge yourself, much less judge the other. Silence. Because the judgment you make against yourself, when you say you are being punished, or why you are sick, or why you lack money, you strengthen the situation instead of going through it. Silence. Experience it and you will live it. Stop complaining. Love never complains. It takes everything. Your character, your suffering, your conscience. And it is by taking everything from you that sets you free. And you discover, through insecurity, your body, certain aspects of your life, that you are free, when you accept, rather than fight, rather than oppose, rather than want to understand, or want to solve. It is not for nothing that these words are used thousands of times, acceptance and evidence, or embrace. Phone ringing. Because when you demonstrate, when you simply say I am sick, you are violent towards the truth. You are violent towards yourself and you hurt yourself. Real and concrete. You put distance. You're dividing with the truth. You're becoming even more fragmented. Silence. Acceptance is the key. And acceptance is the solution. But don't procrastinate by saying I accept if I'm cured. Accept first, and then you'll see. This is not a negate negotiation. This is not trade, neither with you nor with the other. It's a gift, it's a restitution. Silence. Then stop working like that. Stop claiming and you will receive everything. Otherwise, where's your sacrifice? Of what life asks of you. It's different for everyone. But the result, it is the same, it is the same. It's a gape. Silence. Since I repeated it when I was incarnate, I repeated it but countless times in 2012, and these past years, there can be no other speeches, there is no other alternative. What you care about makes you sick and puts obstacles and resistance in your way. Do not feed it through the mind. Don't feed him by talking about it. But make it disappear without any intention, without any will, by humility and acceptance. You can only see the results. And if you don't see anything, it's just that you're not authentic and simple enough yet. Silence. Let's continue. Voice. How can I understand the reason for my stroke, when I consider it a punishment? Well, you just can't understand it, even if you consider it a contribution, which is fair. You can only cross it. You can only accept it, and I'm talking about the mechanisms of consciousness itself. This does not prevent you from taking care of yourself, but above all, from stopping thinking and questioning yourself, because things are going in circles. There is non-acceptance of something you decided yourself, long before you came. So of course, we can always find an outside culprit, a responsible one. But you're alone, who do you want to blame? Silence. What do you want to understand? Who wants to understand? Who wants to grasp the true causality, when all this is an absurd dream? Silence. And if there is, we are talking about hemiplegia, that's it. Whatever the side, it's because somewhere there has been a rupture of order, between what is called the seventh chakra and the heart. Everything you care about is important to you. If you value your life, you will be cut off from life. The intelligence of the light, that's it. It's not to make you understand. It's to get you to cross over and accept. Understanding belongs to the mind. For agape, only the lived experience is understanding. And when you agape, you don't care about causality, reasons or causes, because you are no longer that character. You are no longer that person. Yet you express yourself through this person. But you are no longer, really and concretely. Silence. Turn to the true and beautiful, even if you feel ugly somewhere, or sick, or lack affect or money or anything. And let beauty and truth engage you. Covering all this up. Transcend all that. There's nothing you can do about it. As long as you believe you can or must change anything right now, you are not free. It has been said in countless ways. Everything you care about is important to you. Agape, freedom, means nothing. She is. Everything is embraced, whether you like it or not. Everything is crossed no matter what the person, the character says. It is crossed. That is the true lightness. That is freedom. This is humanity, simplicity, love, fraternity. Not anywhere else. Take care of the beauty. Don't worry about your shortfalls anymore. I'm talking about your conscience. But take care of it, if you want in energy, if you want with medication, whatever. But don't mix what you are with that. In short, see clearly the difference in what is of the order of the person, who brings back to him/her, why, how, what reasons, what causes, from the one who is in the gift. No lack of money, health, disease or disorder can prevent you from giving yourself away. Quite the contrary. Accept that everything is perfect, even through your illness, your suffering and your shortcomings, and everything will really be perfect. But not according to your demands, but according to agape. Silence. We can continue. Voice. What is it that makes it impossible to apply it, even though we are aware of the acceptance of everything that happens? The person will never be able to apply it. It is when you are freed from the person that everything applies, of itself. As long as it seems to you that you have to make an effort, as long as it seems to you that you are pursuing a path, a progression, you cannot be free in totality. Accept that everything is perfect, and everything will be perfect. Because you will be agape. But not before. You can't cheat yourself. You can't fool yourself. It's over these days. Either you accept or you refuse. If you refuse, it's suffering, guaranteed every time. If you accept, it is love. But you will see it in all areas of your lives. It's not a punishment, it's the circumstances of the truth. Silence. So there is no point in looking for explanations in the hypothetical karma that will always concern a person, or in psychology that will always concern a person as well. The explanation, the understanding without living agape now only strengthens the person and maintains the distance from the truth that you are. That is why I insisted, that ever insists on love or suffering, because indeed, it is becoming more and more clear-cut, more and more evident, even if you don't see it yet. The choice is yours. Freedom where there is no choice is therefore love. Or believe that you have the choice to decide, and that will be suffering. In every possible way. Silence. Love is not a reward. Love is not a progression. Love is what we are, before form, any consciousness. This is the only truth and the only beauty. That is the absolute truth. Whether you like it or not won't change that. Whether you live it or not won't change anything either. Silence. So, accept it, and you're free, it's instantaneous. I can't tell you any better, it's been repeated in every way possible. And in the kind of questions you ask me, of course, there is evidence of non-acceptance, of disability, of absurdity, of your limits, as a person. That's all it means. In other words, you want to restore physical integrity, emotional integrity, financial integrity, but these are still the person's claims. See it clearly. Life, in other words, what you really are, does not need your character, does not need your well-being, does not need your opulence, any more than it does your lack. It simply needs you to be clear-headed, that is, to accept the unacceptable, to go through it, and finally to live the evidence. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to move. You don't have to understand. Acceptance is not a concept, intellectual or psychological. It is a real act of love, towards yourselves, which makes grace and forgiveness active, without you. This is the gift of grace. That's the truth. And you are all capable, without any difference, of living it, whatever the lived experience, to live it. It is just strategies of your habits, beliefs, doubts, that stand in the way. And it reflects, as I said, that you care about your body, your life, your wallet, your husband, your wife, or any event that happens or does not happen. There is no real space of freedom in there. Because you put yourself at a distance from the beginning. In other words, accept the truth and you will be the truth. You don't need to understand the ins and outs of it. You have no need to understand it, since as I have said and repeated, it is the lived experience that is the understanding, nothing else. Everything else is just gestures of the person, claims. You are perishable. As you know, we are born and we die. Then there are the spiritual alibis. Oh yes, I pay my karma, so I will come back to make amends. But this is a phonics, it's a dream, a total nightmare. Silence. Your embrace and gift, beyond any form, any world, any identity, any personality, any vibration, any energy, accept it and you will live it. But don't put a yes but in front. But don't put your character who needs to clarify and understand, because at that moment, you are moving away from it. It's always been there, it's been told to you and repeated and recredited. Check it, don't believe us. But how do you want to check it if you're constantly trying to solve it? Your embrace and gift beyond any form, any world, any identity, any personality, any vibration, any energy. Accept it and you will live it. But don't put a yes but in front. But don't put your character, who needs to clarify and understand, because at that moment, you are moving away from it. It's always been there, it's been told to you over and over and over again. Check it, don't believe us. But how do you want to verify this if you're constantly trying to solve rather than lie? How do you want to be live if you are still dependent on your body or your life, whatever the lack or abundance? That's impossible. It has been said and repeated by the stars, by the ancients, by the archangels, in every possible way. Do not oppose anything, because opposition is a projection and a duality. Acceptance leads you to unity and, above all, to the lived experience of a gate that you are. This does not prevent you from taking care of yourself or looking for work, but do not mix it with who you are. The more true you are, the more spontaneous you are anyway. And the more spontaneity is there, the more you will realize that you can't program anything of yourself, that you can't decide anything of yourself, and that also the embracing and the crossing. The acceptance of the inconceivable, the unacceptable and therefore the unknown, makes you aware of it. It's as simple as that. It can't be a desire. It can't be something to achieve. It's something that's always been there, despite the confinement. You're ego and that's it. The rest goes on without you, the illness as well as the cure. But as long as there's you, there's suffering. It can't be any other way in these particular times. It is a constant that is played out in every consciousness, in every individual, in every form, in every cell of your bodies, in every universe, in every planet, in every satellite, in the whole primordial ether, in the four elements. So, of course, ego accompanies the film, but it's a film. Don't make a scene of your illnesses, sufferings or shortages. They are there as rewards. Of course, at the ego level, it is impossible to accept or understand. But that's exactly what you have to go through for you. Without it, how did you sacrifice yourself? What did you do for yourself? You give your life to life. Before, you're not free. Look at the testimonies of the brothers and sisters who live it, in order to resonate, not to drool in front of it or to believe that you are far from it. To resonate with the profound truth of each person is already to recognize and live in the other, in order to understand that there is neither one nor the other. Silence. You can continue. Voices. There are no more written questions. Let's move on to the oral part. Don't be frightened, my words are made to cross you, hit you like never before. It can't hurt you, it can knock you down and that's what makes you cross over. Silence. I doubt they're all asleep. Voice. Not all of them, no, but they are all doubtful. Laughs. Voice. Some are, yes, do not hesitate even if it is not for you. It will always be useful. Voice. What could we say to brothers and sisters who discover disease, a cancer? What can we tell them to help them, actually? To take care of their bodies, but without thinking about any causality in the mind. It is the fault of all those who are in the field of energy and spirituality. It is always to find an explanation or a cause. But even the appearance of life is without cause and without explanation. It's just passing through. Take care of yourself, but don't get involved in it what you are. That's the crossing, that's not negligence. It's not to deny something that's there. That's what autonomy is all about. It means accepting without understanding that everything that happens to you, without exception, has been decided by you. No one forced you. Even the so-called lords of karma are just you. So take care of what needs to be taken care of, but do not involve your mind in it. Be confident in who you are and who you don't know, and it will be known, and it will be lived, and you will be happy. If you need to understand and live the surrender to the light and truth through suffering, well, that's fine. I said love or suffering while knowing that suffering also leads to love. But when you get tired of suffering for one reason or another, of being depressed, of believing that you can't do anything, or of looking for a solution elsewhere, especially in your head and in your understanding, you'll suffer more and more. It's not a punishment. It is precisely the most effective way to live what you are in truth. And not what you think you are on this world or in any world. Be lightweight. Sin, dance, stir, eat, drink, smoke, laughs, but forget your head. There is no better way to be in the present instant. When you are in your head, you cannot be in the present instant. You're somewhere else. Any search for explanation and causality today takes you to distance and suffering. Any acceptance and misunderstanding allows you to go through the absurd dream, the absurd suffering and live what you are in truth. It's the only illusion of choice you have. Take, not as an example, but I will say lean on the brothers and sisters who are nothing more than you on another time frame and another frame of form and space, through what they are living. Not to envy them, not to tell you, oh, well, I'm far from it. But to resonate with that, it's part of the agape resonance. It's part of the activation of the fire of the sacred heart. This is something that your questions will never come up. Things that your questions can only take you away from this truth. And that makes sense. How's the heat on the other side? Laughs. We can continue, if you don't mind. Is there any other question, any other testimony? And above all, do not conceive of any guilt when you are not yet living agape. Do not look for any cause or justification. Just accept to be there, where you are. And you will discover the truth and you will live it. It's instantaneous. At least try it. Voice. A person who lives in the present instant cannot be a medium. In the instant, there is only the instant, there is no tomorrow. And even if you have access to all the information, of course, it can help, but it will help who? The person. Be content, even if you're a medium, to be true and authentic, since the most effective way to make money is in the zero time, the present instant. It will reassure the person, it will help the person, yes, but it doesn't really help the truth. It is not a mistake, it is not a fault, but it is an understanding. Be true and authentic, live what you are in truth beyond being, through this character and your presence without words, your love, the fact of taking a brother or sister in your arms really and concretely, will be the most beautiful therapy, the most beautiful mediumship. Restore it to himself, not by telling him his story or what will happen to him. It is not forbidden, but understand well, that you will be much more effective in the happiness of the other who is only you, not by mediumnity of any kind, but by authenticity, that is, the present moment. What emanates from you spontaneously through the fire of the sacred heart, through the radiance, Ebba has explained to you the 24 A's. I don't even need to talk about it. Be authentic. Be fully registered in your presence and absence that is there in the present moment, and everything else will be resolved, for you as well as for the one who is addressing you. You don't need to see. You don't need to feel. You don't need to perceive. You don't need to know the other person other than by their first and last name. You're the other, totally and entirely. It's just you. It's just you. There is only you, despite the differences in form, despite the pleasant or unpleasant side of any relationship, of everything you see. That's what simplicity is all about. As I said, be authentic. Do not burden yourself with anything but your humanity and simplicity. That's how you are spontaneous. That's how you find yourself. That's how you are whole, whatever the lack of your body or this world. You have no other options. Everything else keeps you away from it from now on. So, if your spontaneity involves hanging in the arms, singing, giving information, yes, all means are good. But it all depends on your posture. It all depends on your point of view. Donations are useful, but what do we do with them? A claim or a restitution? It is by looking at the other, by taking him in his arms, by giving him attention, time, whatever he says, whatever he claims from you, whatever he asks you, that you are free. This is how you really recognize, in concrete terms, despite the separation of form and time, and space, that you are in truth the other as much as you are yourself, no more, no less. You can only love no matter what they do to you, no matter what they tell you. Check it out. Practice it. I believe that Eba has given you some more techniques without techniques to free yourself from your head, your beliefs, your ideals, your distances, your feelings of lack, suffering, incompleteness, and look at beauty. Don't dwell on what's going on. Do not dwell on you who also pass through this body and this life. You cannot be your life and life. You will now see this truth every day, in this period of intensification decreed by the dream-making cetaceans. Through the experience of your life, what you experience, feel, live it, and not only when you meet here or elsewhere, but in all the facts and gestures of your life. Everything will become simpler and simpler or more complicated. The truth is simple. The character is the one who believes in his story or his dream. It's going to get very complicated. You will no longer be able to have false pretenses, evasions or postures that stand up to the truth that you are. Don't fight it. And if you accept where you are going through all of this. So, when you think about it or look for a cause or an explanation, you're only freezing what must pass. Don't believe me? Check it out. Try to spend only a few hours in a day without judging anything, neither you nor the other nor the circumstances of your life, and you will go through everything. It is the truth. Be true and authentic. There is nowhere else, but here and now. This is where zero time is, not elsewhere, not tomorrow, not under pretexts or reasons or causalities. As the liberated tell you, that they understood by living it that there was no liberation, that it had always been there, they can only tell you that. Everything else takes you elsewhere only in a here and now, other than in the absolute truth, other than in agape. Be spontaneous and true no matter what you have to do, cleaning, cooking, love or anything else. If you can be true and spontaneous, agape can only reveal itself totally, completely. Realize that it is the person, the character who is the obstacle. You cannot bring agape into the person. Agape is in the heart of the heart. He does not need you, nor your sufferings nor your rewards, but simply to be there, lucid, present, humble, simple. That's all. That's all. If you don't live it, there is no guilt, but it still means that you are not simple enough. And that somewhere, in the mechanisms of your person and of the dream, you are complicated. It is not for nothing that, today, the only possible way is the way of childhood. Not the way of energy, vibration or visions that take you away from the truth that is there and that was not there, accessible, 2 years ago. Take, by resonance, the countless testimonies of other brothers and sisters and you will resonate with the truth of the zero time and you will live agape, whatever your tears, whatever your lack, in appearance. It has been said, you are nothing of what you experience, you are nothing of what you feel, you're anterior to what can be experienced, you're anterior to what can be felt. Certainly, the feeling accompanies it, the vibrations accompany it, but it only goes away too. You've never moved, you've always been there. Creation is only passing through. Only immutability is true. So, whether you rely on Advaita Vedanta, Taoism, your living experience, it is inevitable. Be true and authentic. Don't cheat on your experience. Don't cheat with words. Be spontaneous. It's the only way to be true and not cheat. As soon as you think, as soon as you prepare an answer, an argument, you are no longer available for the moment. And you see it when you hug, there is no need for words, there is no need for sexual or friendly drive or anything else, it's true brotherhood. There is no intention behind it, other than to live this communion from heart to heart, in order to live that the heart of one is the heart of the other and that there is only one heart. Silence. We can continue, if there are still some brave ones left. Sister. Hello BIDI. What? Sister. I was just saying hello. I can't hear anything, you're not in the aura enough. Voice. It is a question or a testimony. One question. So I'll repeat it. I have the impression that sometimes, despite being spontaneous or in joy, this expression of joy can be disturbing. Is it up to us to correct? Maybe you confuse loud joy with silent joy. Naked joy is never exuberance. It is silence. Above all, it is smile. Keep going. Voice. She has nothing to add here. In fact, I answered. Voice. Yes. True naked joy is expressed as well by laughter, by the brightness of the eyes, by the smile, by kindness, but as soon as it is caught by the person, this joy can become exuberant and this exuberance is no longer quite joy. Joy is an obvious fact for the one who lives it and for the one who is facing it. There can be no rejection of joy. There can be a rejection of words, a rejection of agape, but when you are in joy, whatever its nature, whatever its manifestation, nothing can be disturbed. If there is disturbance, it is because there is alteration during the manifestation of what is really and concretely lived in the silence of his heart. Spontaneity is necessary, it is essential and it establishes itself. But understand well, that as much on the concepts of agape, you can be rejected, for the one who the consciousness and who did not go, I would say, to the source of the consciousness. But if there is disturbance for the other, it is that the other, whatever part is hit. But the fact that it has been hit simply proves that it has not been crossed, both by the person who is hit or who thinks he is hit, and by the person who thinks he is hit or disturbed. Naked joy is without object and without subject and is lived in a privileged way by testimonies, by silence, by resonance, by laughter and smile too. But also remember that there are people who prevent you from going in circles and who react as soon as something disturbs them. So, of course, the one who is free can embrace exuberance, the manifestation, without any limit. He who is not free can only react. So it's not really a problem of spontaneity or excess or even, as I said, of exuberance, but simply a matter of embracing the other even when he or she reacts. It doesn't matter since the other one is you. If you have the impression that certain joys disturb, it is because you yourself are disturbed in the same way. But in naked joy, of course, this joy, which has been explained countless times, can be silent, perhaps more visible and perhaps, in some cases, more exuberant, even totally exuberant. But all these joys represent a whole range, a whole palette of truth, but you cannot privilege silence in the same way that you cannot privilege exuberance. Otherwise, what happens to it? A habit. So if you keep quiet, you don't communicate anymore. Of course, you are contaminated by your simple experience, even at a distance. But communication, as long as you, human beings, exchange, hugging, as I said, talking exchange, testifying is important. But under certain circumstances, silent joy imposes itself. It is you, who is in joy, but this joy, it needs nothing, it is there, even when you are not laughing. So don't ask yourself questions about what behavior to adopt here too, but accept as you say this spontaneity, but this spontaneity has several expressions. From silent joy to exuberant joy. There is a whole palette, a whole range in naked joy, of manifestation, expression, communication. You can't disturb by joy, anyone. You can disturb through speeches, you can disturb through what the other feels, but if you are totally authentic and totally joyful, at a given moment, transparency is total. And naked joy cannot be compared to anything. At that moment, you're in the fire of the Sacred Heart, in permanent emission, and you no longer need to translate it in any way whatsoever. As much by the silence as by the exuberance or the whole range of joy I mentioned, because every moment is free and spontaneous from all references and habits. Naked joy is never violent. It is never aggressive or never perceived as aggressive by anyone. At most, it is indifference or indifference to think that you are crazy or abnormal. But you don't care, because the two is a point of view, a posture. But, grasp it by living it, that true joy is not only a burst of laughter or silence, but it is also a transparency. It is also a spontaneity, but also, somewhere, an ecstasy and an ecstasis. Of course, if you look at the stars and the example of Marwan and Amoy, she had moments of laughter, moments of thundering joy and moments of silence and disappearances. Therefore, do not in any way freeze naked joy through a single expression, but you must accept that this joy can manifest itself through you in infinite ways. And as long as you observe that this joy always manifests itself in the same way, then there is habit. And then, spontaneity, which becomes a habit, is no longer spontaneity. It is an addiction to a mode of expression, a mode of communication or manifestation. True spontaneity cannot lead you to something reproducible. You are, at every opportunity, completely new, completely available. And the expression of joy then, is multifaceted. Everything is a pretext for joy and everything will be the manifestation of joy. Even in silence. Even in some cases in exuberance. So, when it bothers us, since it is not about concepts, words or speeches or presentations, but when there is a disturbance in relation to the expression of joy, there is a dissonance, and it doesn't matter whether it comes from the sender or the receiver, since there is neither one nor the other. There is just a resonance, which is not totally granted at the present moment and which refers, indeed, to a spontaneity of laughter and joy, but which appears there too as a form of self-conditioning and a privileged and monoform expression of joy, whereas bare joy can present, as I told you, all the palettes, all the scales. And true naked joy is an inner jubilation as expressed and lived by Marwan and Amoy, nothing else. But as soon as there is a habit of expressing this joy in a constant, regular and permanent way, either silence, or the same laughter, or the same intensity, it is still somewhere, something that is not seen and that conditions you against your will. Joy can be a tear in the corner of the eye, as well as a great burst of laughter, a majestic silence, a manifested ecstasy, or an inner jubilation. Anything is possible. But do not let yourself be carried away by this real living experience, through a manifestation and a monoform expression. Joy is diverse. It has many expressions, many manifestations, many translations. That's naked joy. And I remind you that it is, above all, a joy that is not conditioned by a circumstance, or by an event, or by a situation. It is spontaneous and natural, and it tends to invade all your moments and all your instants, all that is crossed, all that is lived happy as unhappy. Naked joy does not depend on happiness or misfortune. Does not depend on a story. Or even a result. The stars, through their innumerable testimonies, are all protean and different. But you can see, through the lived experience of these stars, that they've told you, that for some stars, joy was obedience and humility, that for others it was the joy of communicating with Christ or the truth, for others to perform miracles, for others to receive knowledge, like Hildegard von Bingen. What is embarrassing in what you propose or say is, once again, the fixity of the manifestation in relation to this joy, which obviously fluctuates even when it is naked, even when it is permanent. It has oscillations, inward movements, outward movements, it goes in all directions. And above all, it doesn't depend on you or the circumstances. If joy is based on a circumstance, it means that it is not free, that it is not naked. Joy is a state of being and non-being, which is the result of agape, which is the result of simplicity, the result of communion, and also that capacity to be crossed by everything and everyone. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Sister. Yes. Thank you very much, BIDI. Voice. Yes. Thank you very much, BIDI. So let's keep going. Silence. Sister, I'm going to ask a question, for a person who has a blockage in the intestinal transit. And who is very concerned about that, because, at the same time, it affects the food sphere. Voice. It is a question, in relation to another person who has a bowel movement problem. Constantly blocked. Sister. And it also produces, what does this have to do with what I can answer? Laughs. I don't know anything about how the body works. Sister. Is it a psychological resonance? Is it a heart resonance? I mean, I don't know. There you go. What does that tell us about his relationship to the world? Voice. What indication can this give of his relationship to the world? It's very simple. Being constipated means not letting anything escape. What is being retained? Before we talk about the subjects. What in consciousness obstructs and refuses to be crossed and eliminated, unconsciously, of course. I can't say any more than that. The best way to see that your body is working, normally, is to leave it alone. You're not that body. If there is one physiological function, the most common and elementary, it is to evacuate materials, such as urine. It indicates a heavy, tamasic constitution. 1:25 and 47 seconds, so, of course, it can be food as well as thoughts. What do you remember? That's what this blocking tells you. So, of course, afterwards, at the medical level, there are countless causes, but this is not my field. Now, when you're constipated, it means you're not eliminating. You unconsciously refuse to let things go through you, you stop them somewhere. Whatever the physiological cause. Whatever the structural cause. These are just consequences. The colon is what carries and coordinates. If it's clogged, it just means that there's something that's not being routed and not coordinated. Of course, even if there is a dietary or food cause, the root cause is never there. It is in what refers within the character, to the function not metabolic or related to the maintenance of the body, but what I would call an archetypal function. The colon carries and coordinates. It is also, certainly, a difficulty to complete things, to go all the way, that is the case, to say it. It is also often a difficulty to give up. A need to retain unconscious, the past and history. But this explanation will never solve your transit at any time. Again, this is not my area of expertise. What I noticed when I was incarnated is that when I accepted the words of my master that I was not this body, in 3 years, I saw that this body was perfectly fine without me. He regulated himself. And the cancer I had, of course, at the end of my life, was a way to leave like any other. Even if the external causality was what I smoked, of course. But there comes a time when you have to leave. Not everyone can leave in their sleep. Or by disease. So, beyond all explanations, all causalities, all realities of how your body works, the radical solution is to understand that you are not that body. You are, in this body. Then leave him alone. It will work even better. That's what I can say about it. No more than that. Sister, thank you BIDI. Voice, thank you BIDI. Brother, to follow up on this story of a pig, I have a testimony and a remark. First of all, I would like to express my joy at being with you again. And, as far as the testimony is concerned, at the end of September last year, by taking a group, discovering a village of dragons at the fairy pond, I made a violent fall on the occiput. I didn't have a wound or a hematoma, however, I did have a fistula between arteries, a vein, a large vein of the skull and arteries. This fistula caused a blast, both at the time of the heart's contraction and at the time of its relaxation. This breath made me feel all the beats of my heart every second, day and night. It was unbearable. Until the moment when, there I hear it the very breath, until the moment when I accepted it and embraced it with love. And from that moment on, I heard it much less, almost more. I could hear it especially in the lying position and especially at the end of the night. At the end of the night, it forced me to get up at 5 in the morning. But now it's practically disappeared since the moment I accepted and embraced it. Thank you for your testimony. Continue. Continued. So, the remark. You told us about a bag of meat. Which is very telling. But since I have lived through this problem, I have realized that it is not appropriate. We're a bag of pipes. Everything is pipes. And by the way, Metatron, I was told that his expression, it's a tube. Continued. It was a pipe. That's it, that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you. But your testimony, regardless of your remark, is an encouragement. You've been through it. Brother, well, yes. So you understood that. Brother, Well, yes. There you go. But until you live it, you can't understand it. When you realize that you have no choice but to accept. And here, I'm not talking about your little health or your little life. But when you accept the truth, when chaos unmasks everything, you will all behave in the same way, you will have no other choice. And you will be free. And nothing prevents you, as this brother's testimony, from doing so right now. As Egba said, everything you oppose today is immediately strengthened. Because who opposes if not the person? Agape never opposes. Agape is acquiescence, crossing and evidence. This also applies to the issue of joy earlier. He who reacts to your spontaneous joy, even exuberant, is not free. And that's exactly what he had to meet to realize it and therefore be free. There is no lesson for one or the other, it is a lesson of both, therefore, of the same person, taken at another time, in another space-time and in another form. In the common dream, the more you accept what you do not live and which is unknown to you, the more it will become known and the more it will be lived. As long as you oppose yourself, any circumstances, any brothers or sisters, they are not pretexts and opportunities to set yourself free. Because Agape can't oppose anything. While the person only exists by opposition, confrontation, nothing can be opposed to Agape, there is no opposite. The opposite of love can be, possibly hatred, but for Agape, there is no opposite. The same applies to opposition or confrontation. Any opposition can only arise in the person. All confrontations, with yourselves or with anyone else, or with the circumstance of your lives, belong to the dream, to the illusion, but it is not you. And as our brother said earlier, acceptance creates the miracle. And you can't cheat with that. You can't tell yourself I accept and I see. Real acceptance is frank and complete, it does not support any conditions, prerequisites or rewards. If you're authentic with this notion of acceptance, you can only notice the improvement, sedation or complete disappearance of a disorder, a disease or a situation. Real and concrete. But it's done without you. Remember that acceptance creates the crossing of illusion. And that's where you live, that you've always been there. Whether you have simply forgotten it, simply neglected by habits, social or moral conventions, or emotional or societal conventions, but that's all. Silence. Are there any other questions? Voice. Yes, there is, apparently, a question from a sister. Sister. I come back to the singing in my ears. Hey, the singing, the music. Why are there some who don't have it and why are there others who have it and are getting stronger? Voice. So I come back to the singing, the music in my ears. Why are there some who have it and others who don't, and why are there some who have it stronger and stronger? The sound, also called the netta or song of the soul and song of the spirit, which was related to what we called in Ayurveda the Antakana, the celestial road, was called the Marian Canal. It has always been said that as the event and the visibility of the celestial body approached, this sound would increase for those who possess it. Those who are living this sound, whether intense or light, simply translate the communication of the soul with the spirit and the consummation of the soul. Of course, when the spirit is revealed in its entirety, sound will participate in the mechanisms of event and stasis. This is what will amaze your conscience with the seventh sound, or the seventh trumpet, if you will, as described, both in your Apocalypse of St. John and by No Eyes or Snow, or by Patanjali and Yoga Sutra, a long time ago. It is the sound of the soul and then the sound of the spirit that comes to awaken you and accompany you, the exit from the dream, which is synchronous with the sounds of the sky and the sounds of the earth. Except that you have got used to it when you feel it and live it, and that for those who will live it in the collective moment, it will really lead to astonishment of the total consciousness. And thus a full entry into the event, into the amazement of consciousness, which makes it possible to live agape, in this collective moment, where no consciousness can be maintained. And you'll discover that you've always been there. It makes perfect sense. And of course, for those who have these sounds, these songs, they become, indeed, more and more intense, more and more invasive until they take the whole head, but also the whole body. This is the moment when the vibration of your eternity circuits is replaced by an inner tremor of the entire physical structure, which obviously indicates the immediate proximity of the event. You are simply ahead of the collective in terms of perception and lived experience, that's all. Silence. One more question. Voice. There are no further questions. Maybe it's time then? Voice. Yes. So, well, BIDI in silence, transmit to you the fire of the Sacred Heart. This is my way of giving you thanks and being in you today, as I am at 23 hours for you in Europe and also, I believe, as I said, 23 hours in Quebec time. It's, like, a little extra. Sister, thank you BIDI. Sister, thank you BIDI. Silence. Well, BIDI greets you and says, for those who wish, at 23 o'clock. Sister, at 23 o'clock. Sister, thank you. See you soon. All, see you soon. Thank you. Thank you. Through Jean-Luc Young. The Transformations. English translation, LMF.